difficult part. Solder together 2 banks of 4 and then connect them in this fashion. Then you'll want to connect together the terminals on the top of each bulb, and then take a small piece of wire and connect all of those together. Once you get the terminals connected, put a wire to the ground and then put on your alligator clips or connectors. When you connect the discharge bank, make sure you don't create a dead short, and be careful, the bulbs get very hot. Now we're ready to test the condition of our batteries. To do this, we're going to need the discharge bank we built earlier, a digital voltmeter. This one I picked up at Radio Shack on sale for about 15 bucks, and a digital stopwatch, and this one cost $7. And what we're going to be doing is hooking the battery pack up to this discharge bank with the voltmeter connected, and at every 30-second time increment we're going to be recording the volts. We're going to continue to do this until the voltage drops down to 0.9 volts per cell. Okay, we're off approximately 2 seconds, and that's very important to remember. So we'll add 2 seconds to it. Okay, right now we start out with 7.45 volts. Remember, at 5.4 we want to stop it. 6 we're looking at 554. What's happening now? Oop, we lost it. Shoot. That happens awful quick, doesn't it? And just dump. If you look at the discharge cells here, they've almost got nothing coming out. Here's our completed test of all of our 6-cell packs. If you notice, on the right side of the page, we've noted how long it took each pack to reach 5.4 volts. Notice that the worst pack we have is a minute down on the best. Since our non-automated charger doesn't regulate discharge amperage, it will tend to exaggerate the difference between packs slightly, but our comparison is still accurate. There are some tips we can use to maintain accuracy. Charge all of your packs in the same manner unless you're comparing charging methods. Warm up the discharger before each test with a spare battery pack or a power supply, and to compare packs, it's best to ignore the first and last 30 seconds of discharge. Since this discharger is unregulated, you won't be able to compare the numbers you get with other dischargers, but it does give you a very accurate comparison between packs. Get some of your friends together and compare all of your packs and try different charging methods. You'll learn really quick what makes a good battery pack and what doesn't. It's really quite easy to use this discharger once you put it together and try it, so go to it. There are 2 methods that allow us to easily determine when a pack has reached its charge: voltage and temperature. Voltage will increase gradually and then plateau right before the peak, and as it reaches peak charge, the voltage will drop quickly. Temperature works exactly opposite. It too will climb gradually, but as it reaches a full charge, the temperature will go up drastically. We can use either one of these methods to determine when our pack is charged. There are 2 types of chargers we will work with: the peak charger and the timer charger. The timer charger only approximates a full charge, while the peak charger actually measures when the voltage decreases and shuts off automatically. Peak charging is a much preferred method. You can obtain a full charge with a non-peak charger though. Here we have the same timer charger and we've hooked up a voltmeter to it. We're watching for the voltage drop that indicates when the pack is fully charged. As you can see, our voltage is at a plateau. It's starting to drop, and that's telling us we've hit a peak. We'll let it drop 5/100ths, and then we'll call it done. The pack is just getting slightly warm. That's just what we want to see. If you don't have access to a multimeter, you can use the temperature method to tell when your pack is charged. Starting with a pack at room temperature, monitor its temperature. When it reaches about 100 to 110 degrees, you've got a full charge. Be careful that you don't overcharge it. Out of all the packs we tested, we preferred the ones assembled with Sanyo 1400 SCR cells. The 1400 SCRs have a good compromise between voltage output and capacity, and they work very well in both stock and modified racing. You don't need to spend a lot of money on batteries to be competitive. The difference between high-buck, high-rated packs and inexpensive, low-rated packs is not that great, and often a pack that is rated high will lose that edge after a couple of runs. We do suggest that you buy matched packs though, and we've had very good luck with some budget brands. This is a Duratrax 1400 SCR that we picked up for $25.99, and we strongly suggest it. We do suggest that you do rewire these packs to make it easier to get at each individual cell for testing and to get a better connection between the two. We can fine-tune the power output of our cells by the charge rate we choose. A high charge rate will give us more voltage and a little less duration. We usually use this for stock motors where duration usually isn't a problem. And a low charge rate will give us less voltage and more duration. We might use this for modified racing or to make our cells last longer. There are 3 important summaries we can make about battery charging. Always peak charge your battery packs, discharge them completely after every run, and test your packs and cycle them. Battery technology is constantly changing, and the only way to keep up with this technology is to test your own packs. A motor's power, efficiency, and reliability are very important. While your life may not depend on your engine as much as a pilot of a Harrier jump jet, your racing success certainly does. We did extensive testing of new motors and motors ran by various types of racers and came to the conclusion that most are better off taking care of their equipment than dreaming of motors they don't have. The most important step is keeping your motor clean, and the second step is knowing when your motor is worn out. If you keep your motor clean, you'll get a lot of wear out of them. When they do wear out, it'll become pretty obvious if you're keeping good records of how your car is running. If you own a lot of motors and don't have the time to track test them, you can have them dyno tested. Dynos are becoming a pretty widespread piece of equipment, and most dyno owners will test your motors for a fairly reasonable price. Maintenance isn't that difficult. We suggest that you buy a good can of motor spray and a collection of commutator sticks and use them to clean your motor often. We suggest that you clean your motor after every 5 to 6 runs on asphalt and after every 2 to 3 on dirt, and more if the conditions are really dusty. Replace your brushes when they have worn to 3/4 of their original height or have become burnt or pitted. Motor selection can be more involved. Stock motors are fairly equal, but small differences can exist, primarily in the manufacturer's choice of brushes and spring tension, and some have better quality control. The best way to choose a stock motor is to check what the local hotshots are running, but remember, by rule they should not cost more than $25. Choosing modified motors is extremely dependent on the driver. Most amateurs have a tendency to choose too powerful of a motor. Remember, if you can't control it, it's not doing any good. Motors are rated by their number and type of winds. I ran an 18 double in my truck. The 18 signifies how many turns of wire on the armature of the motor. Less winds means bigger wire and more power. The double signifies a type of wind. The lower number types produce their power lower in the RPM range compared to a motor of the same number of turns with a higher type. A large amount of winds with a large type, like a 19 quad, is good for a track that is slippery but large, and a small number of winds in a single configuration is good for small sticky tracks, like a 9 single for drag racing. A motor's timing also affects its power output. Generally, more timing will give you more power, but at the cost of a great loss in efficiency. We suggest that if you need more power, you go to a more powerful motor instead of using timing to make up for it. Gearing works hand in hand with motor selection. With stock motors, we use gearing to put the power band where we want it. With modified motors, we also use gearing to fine-tune run time for each particular track. If you meet run time and need more speed, use the discharger and timer to see how much power was left in the pack. If you've got 30 seconds or more of power left, you'll want to gear your motor harder to take advantage of it. When figuring gear ratios to compare with other racers and record for further use, we suggest you figure tire size into the equation. We figure ratios by dividing the number of teeth on the spur gear by the number of teeth on the pinion, then multiply this by the transmission ratio. This gives us our final drive ratio. Measure tire circumference with a piece of string and a ruler, then divide it by final drive ratio, and this gives you how far the car moves for every revolution of the motor. This will allow us to compare ratios between cars with different sized tires. This is really important when using foam tires. We want to avoid electrical resistance all we can in our car's electrical system. One of the best ways to do this is to get rid of all the connectors. We suggest that if you have access to electricity or a portable soldering iron, that you get rid of all the connectors in your car and hardwire everything by soldering everything direct. If you don't do this, you'll definitely want to invest in some high quality connectors. One of the best places to go for free advice is your local hobby shop. Find a hobby shop that specializes in RC cars, and a lot of times they'll be able to give you a very good idea of what kind of tire and gearing works well in your area. They also are a good place to go for a quick supply of parts, and this is very important in racing. There's nothing more frustrating than needing a part and not being able to get it quick. Be sure to support your local hobby shop. If your hobby shop goes